November 8th at 4 o'clock. Let me get you caught up to speed. Last night, in a suite high above Madison Square Garden, an elite group of academics, aristocrats, that's a movie involving kittens. Aristocrats, that is, and a gentleman who was just there for the catering, fought and toiled and burned the midnight oil to deliver the best segment in all of sports television. It's an honor and a privilege. It's time for Nick's Tears.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, as always, Kevin Wildes.
Oh, thanks.
No, it was truly great. Who cares?
Well, I said the aristocrats.
That's all right. That's part of your charm. All right, who's off the tiers? The relegation tier last week saw another team lose. So these 5 teams are off the tiers, and they also, double as the 5 worst teams in football. All of them have their eyes on USC and North Carolina college football, except, of course, Carolina, who traded that pick for Bryce Young. All right, now to the tiers. No relegation tier this week. So everyone will stay alive. That's still oddly interesting for different reasons. So let's go through them quickly. I'm interested to see, is Sean Payton actually going to salvage Russell Wilson, or are they cutting him after the year? I'm interested in that. But the Titans, I'm interested in watching Will Levis. Strong arm, I'm interested. With the Rams, if Stafford comes back, they are interesting. With the Packers, are we seeing the final moments of Jordan Love's career as a starter there? In which case that draft pick that alienated Aaron Rodgers takes on a whole different tenor. And with the Jets, I'm interested in how much longer they're going to continue this facade of Zach Wilson being an interesting starting quarterback. Next, faint hope. You can see the reason for belief, however unlikely, for these teams to make the playoffs. For the Bucs and Falcons, it's the NFC South, and the Saints could fall apart. For the Saints, it's the two-headed run game of Moss and Jonathan Taylor, along with Gardner playing well. For the Raiders, maybe Antonio Pierce really has something there. And for the Washington, it's Wilde's beloved Sam Howell and actually somewhat dynamic passing attack. Next, there's a path. It's very clear how these teams make the postseason. For Minnesota, it's Justin Jefferson comes back. A 7th team has to make it in the NFC. It's wide open, and right now, they're in there. For the Chargers, it's Justin Herbert finally play up to his ability. Brandon Staley makes some of those 4th down conversions. And for the Saints, just continue on the path you're on. You're in the NFC South, and it doesn't look like the Bucs or the Falcons are going to make a ton of noise. Next, similar results, dissimilar outlooks. These teams are all hovering right around 500, 4 or 5 wins, but their fan bases all feel very differently. For the Steelers, it's like, about what we expected. Offense is incredibly boring, Tomlin's great, the defense is good, and we can't contend. For the Bills, it's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, hey, we're 5-4. We're 5-4. We might not make the playoffs. And for the Texans, it's we're 4-4. We might make the playoffs. This is amazing. It's all very similar, and fan bases feel so differently. Solid playoff team, nothing more. These teams are going to make the playoffs. They're not going to scare anyone in the playoffs. And that's what you said about them last year. And that's what they are this year. They're both solid playoff teams that are not actually A-level contenders or even B-level contenders. Next, impossible to predict. So any of these teams, if you told me they got blown out in round 1 of the playoffs, I'd be like, believe it. I can see it. If you told me they have a 7-point lead in the 4th quarter of the conference championship game, I'd be like, yeah, I can see that too. For the Lions, they have been incredibly solid for more than 12 months now. For the Niners, we have seen them do that. If Purdy can get back on track, they look like the best team in football. And for the Browns, we have seen the path of this defense just holds you to 13 points. And good luck. You can't get a first down. We turn you over. Jim Schwartz kicking butt. If Deshaun can just be palatable, we've seen that. So I have no idea what you're going to get from those teams. Next, solid everywhere, yet controversial. These teams both have, by all the metrics, very good to excellent defenses. They have, in Jags' case, excellent running game. In the Cowboys' case, good. They all have, at the very least, a good quarterback. Some would think a great quarterback. They have a coach that won a Super Bowl. They check every box. They are a combined 11-5, yet on this show, thanks to the bias on that side of the table, Coach, not over here, they are discussed like they are combined 5-11. Like if you talk about, hey, the Jags are pretty damn good, you've got something on your face. And if you say, hey, maybe the Cowboys get a little over-criticized, you're like, no, absolutely not. The podcast sucks. Next. Brou's favorite children. So what do I mean by this? Listen, any of us that have, multiple kids, maybe in Brou's case it's different because they're twins, But if we're being honest in our private moments, maybe after a cocktail, we all have a favorite. And that favorite can get away with things that our other kids could not. And these are Brou's 3 favorite children. So with Philly, turnovers don't matter. The fact that they're in those nip and tuck games with bad teams that he hated when the Chiefs were last year, that doesn't matter. The fact that the locker room itself is like, something's wrong here. Who cares? I picked him to win the Super Bowl with the Ravens. The fact that they've won 2 total playoff games since they won the Super Bowl more than a decade ago. The fact that their quarterback has massive playoff, who cares about history? Live in the now. I'd never hold history against them. Here's my dissertation on why the Cowboys have stunk since 1996. And with the Bengals, the fact that for the first month of football they were terrible, who cares? The quarterback will be, everything's fine. No, it doesn't matter. It's not about a whole body of work. I love them. Next. The favorites. Nick, what do you mean the favorites? Oh, because the committee's biased and relies a lot of Kansas City-based people. No. I mean, you go to your local sports book and say, hey, give me a ticket on the favorites to win the Super Bowl. And they'll say, okay, Kansas City Chiefs. All right, favorites to win the AFC, Kansas City Chiefs. The favorites to be the 1 seed, Kansas City Chiefs. The favorites to have the league MVP, oh, the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, okay. And give me a ticket on the only team in the NFL that's judged on, are they as exciting as I wish they were? Or what's the style points like this week? Give me a ticket on the Kansas City Chiefs. They are the favorites.
Quarterback ever.
And there it is, the Week 10 tiers coach.
That was good.
Nick, this was better. This was way better than Mahomes Mountain, so that's progress. I might guess Kansas City be the favorites to get shut out in the second half. I don't know if that's a new favorite
Imagine
category.
how good you've got to be. Did they win the game?
I know, they did.
Win
It's
the game?
fantastic. I just like to say to my boys, I don't have a favorite. I love you all the same.
That's what he says to me, guys.
just to establish that. And I'd say the one change I'd make, and I've been high on this team since the beginning of the season, is Cleveland. And they had Nick Chubb at the time. And with Deshaun Watson, I thought, different than Russell Wilson, different than Aaron Rodgers. He could make a jump at 28 years old. He's through all the difficult parts that he had to deal with. He had all those things I thought were trending for Cleveland, and they've been better defensively than I thought. And I thought Jim Schwartz would add to that, but they've been better than that. And now you look at the Deshaun Watson problem. It hasn't gotten better. Here he is statistically. He's had two good games against some mediocre teams, but at some point he's got to show up. He's got to not only show up as a player, he's got to be better as a teammate. He's got to be reliable. He's got to be like the rest of those guys and the rest of that division and have some more grit. And until that happens, and he's got a real opportunity to do it this weekend, but until that happens, they got to come down the tiers.
No, that's totally legit, and that's kind of why I say impossible to predict, because I don't think he has to get to the Deshaun Watson we saw in 2019. I think if he can just be the 18th best quarterback in the NFL, with that defense in the cold weather in January, that team could win playoff games.
How about not be a distraction?
Sure, okay, yeah.
Why don't we start with not be a distraction?
I think that's totally fair, and I think the best quarterback they've had in Cleveland the last few years is Jacoby Brissett. Yeah. And that's just what it is, since Baker left. I mean, Nick, this team with Baker, oh my God.
You got the top 4 right, just not in the right order. Baltimore should be number 1. I mean, can we still give them some credit? Nick's still disrespecting the Ravens. All they've done while your Chiefs were struggling to score points they scored 23 points against 2 of the worst defenses in the league, pass defenses especially. What Baltimore was doing was demolishing the impossible to predict Lions, who you say could win the Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl. Yeah. They demolished them and the Seahawks, another playoff team, 75-9.
That's true.
They got the number 1 defense in the league.
Wow.
All right, they're good against the pass and great against the run. They are great running the football. And Lamar Jackson, all he does is win. And I know he only has 9 passing touchdowns, but he got 5 rushing ones. And coach, they pass the ball down the field. And then when they get in the red zone, they run, because they're tied for first in the league in rush touchdowns with 17. So I think you could have a lot more passing touchdowns, but they're handing it off in the red zone and running into the end zone. So I don't really see – I would like to see the passing game, the receivers especially, improve, but that's what I'm going to be watching over the second half of the season. But right now, I think with what they've done, they should be number one.
Well, what they've done recently, they are certainly the hottest team. In the last few weeks, they have looked the best. They have, of all the best teams in football, they're the only one with multiple really bad losses. And so in that regard, but also most importantly, Wildes, we now know. I wasn't sure which one Brou's favorite child actually is.
You know what?
It's the Ravens. I put all three of his kids on there, and we found out.
I also talked to Brou pre-segment. I said, Brou, if you do the Ravens, can I do the Eagles? And he blessed it. He said, go ahead, Wildes.
Oh, so you guys nice to know they're
I can see the Eagles. I can see the Eagles tied with the Chiefs. Like, remember we had the Chiefs tied? I like to have the Eagles back up there, a little Super Bowl rematch. Here's the reason.
Yeah.
I just feel like Jalen Hurts just gets out there, locked in, focused. Who knows if he's got two healthy knees or not, and he just gets out there and plays and wins games. Since the beginning of last year, Patrick Mahomes, who is the gold standard, is 24-5. Jalen Hurts is 24-3, and one of his losses was to Patrick Mahomes. So I just, I lean towards winning the football games. Then we look at the Eagles as a team, just very well balanced. I like a balanced team, averaging 25 points. What are you doing?
No, just go ahead, finish.
What's wrong?
Sometimes you just like set up a whole giant bear trap and then jump into it.
What did I do?
You go ahead.
Yeah, you won the Super Bowl.
You said Patrick Mahomes has 24 losses, 24 wins.
24-5.
Jalen Hurts has 24 wins. I like the guy who wins. I'm picking they have the same number of wins, and Mahomes beat him head to head.
Yeah, but I just want the teams. That's when you guys had Eric Bieniemy and looked like Super Bowl champions. Okay. Not some middling team that does horrible press conferences. What was us? Oh, okay, we got to get better. And then finally, you know what it's really all about?
You guys too, not we.
I went up to my local Marriott and got myself a copy of USA Today.
Yes,
this is what
it
really
matters.
And I went through it, and I said, you know what? Hold on, that is an article on Jalen Hurts right there.
You gonna be able to find it, Wildes? Yeah.
Well, it's got a lot of stuff. NHL, NFL. There it is.
Yeah.
8-1. So maybe
standings.
Well, maybe I'm crazy, but maybe the team with 8 wins and 1 loss is better than teams with 2 losses, 3 losses, 4 losses. Oh, this team's pretty good, although they got 3 losses. Not in my book. Eagles have 1 loss. To get to 2 losses, they had to go back to the Super Bowl.
I don't even know what I'm supposed to say to this.
Well, maybe you should have some respect for the Eagles and
what are the Wildes?
The USA Today.
Wildes, what are these not?
That's why I had to get a USA Today, but I'm saying you need to put some respect on it. Also, right here, the weather.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
And color,
I mean, come on, it's perfect.
Okay, I don't even, you know what? Next time, Brou, you do the Eagles. Next time you do it.
High 84 in Little Rock. Is Burrow the MVP? Next. First things first.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.